Thank you for being here. My name is Marcelo Diversi. I'm a faculty here at the WSU Vancouver and also the current director for the Center for Social Environmental Justice. We are really delighted, to have these fabulous people here today. So thanks for making, the time to come and have this important conversation. Let me just give you an outline of what's going to happen here tonight, as far as we are planning so far, at least. I'm going to make a brief introduction, and then Max Alt, from the Gifford Pinchot Task Force. I was just learning how to say Pinchot. Task Force will actually make a brief introduction, from the task force perspective, and then Bill Carter will come and talk to us, about copper and mining, and then we're going to have time for Q&A here. And then we're going to move to the next room, 129, where we have some cookies and coffee and decaf coffee as well, water. We will have some books and we'll have some material to share with you and hopefully have a meet and greet and carry on with networking. So let me just make a brief introduction to you about the Center for Social Environmental Justice, CSEJ. We are a collective of faculty, students, and staff here on this campus. We have been around for over 10 years. Our main mission is actually to bring people together, including people from the community, so I'm very glad that you're here to talk about issues, especially at the local level, that are happening in terms of social environmental justice. I couldn't imagine something that combines both social and environmental issues more clearly than what we're going to be talking about today. We have spent a semester talking about issues of the coal train, the oil terminals, all the things that are about to influence our little slice of paradise here in the Pacific Northwest. We have colleagues here from history who have been writing about history of mining in the United States. We also have colleagues here who are scientists studying recolonization of Mount St. Helens. So I'm very glad to have everybody here tonight for this conversation. So for now, I just want to introduce Max Alt. Please come on up here, and he's going to be talking a little more about the task force.
Perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Voice is carrying well? Great. Thank you, Marcelo. I want to thank the Center for Social and Environmental Justice for having us, and of course WSU Vancouver for this great space. My name is Max Alt. I'm the Operations Manager for the Gifford Pinchot Task Force. While I'm up here, I want to point out we have a special guest. One of our founders is here. Susan Saul is sitting here in the front. She was here at the very beginning in the purple, so give her a round of applause. We're carrying on our legacy, and we hope we're doing a good job, so we're glad she can join us tonight. Also in the crowd, we have our Executive Director, Bob Dingathal. He's currently on sabbatical to run for Congress. So Bob, a good time for him. Stand up for the Conservation Community here in Southwest Washington. Also in the crowd, we have our new Program Manager, Shiloh Halsey, in the back. Shiloh, give the crowd a wave. And then standing back there in the corner is our Conservation Director, Interim Executive Director, Jessica Schaefer. We're very glad to be here with you tonight. We have been working since 1985 to bring conservation and restoration to the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. And before I get too far, I was just reminded that we have one of our board members, Russ Pascoe, is in the front as well. Russ acts as our treasurer. Dodge that bullet. Would have been taking a big hole there. So we've been working on conservation and restoration issues in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest since 1985. We're a small group of people, but we love what we do. One of our big focuses, of course, have been on the mine. We've also been very committed to the production and the kind of the coalescence of these collaborative groups that work in the forest to bring together community stakeholders, private timber companies, and the Forest Service. Look at ways to do timber sales that have a stewardship ethic, that retain receipts and funds for the local communities, and also make the whole forest, a working forest, sustainable for generations to come. So we're a great group of folks. I'm a little bit biased. Tonight we're going to be speaking on the nature of mining. It's been one of our biggest projects since 2005. Jessica's been here for the whole runaround for that, so she knows. She's actually an environmental lawyer, so she's been handling our legal tact and skill on that, and it's been an interesting ride. So just some background. In 2005, Ascot Resources acquired the mineral claim. It's just 12 miles off the crater of Mount St. Helens. So I'll get a map up here for us. So you can see it's pretty close. It's in the kind of the Goat Mountain region, also known as the Mount Margaret backcountry. And so it's right off the Green River, just about a mile off the Green River. And then this is the actual area of the proposed claim. And so we have some big issues with water quality, old growth forests, and also access needs that we've been dealing with. And so initially the claim came up and Ascot Resources came in. They're a speculation company, so they trade on the Vancouver, BC Stock Exchange, and they don't have a business plan or anything. They can just kind of put the stock out there and be ready to go and drum up business that way. So they came up with a plan that said they'd bring 2,000 jobs to the region. That went to 200 jobs, that went to 20 jobs. They hired one person for this, for the exploratory drilling. It was a security guard for the exploratory drilling operation. And so the statistics change all the time. And what we've encountered is that when you have rural forest-dependent communities that are seeing a shift from the heyday of clear cutting, their funds run out. They get funding from the federal government for their schools through the Secure Rural Schools Act. Those start to dry up, and they really start to get desperate and look for ways to bring in money so their children can grow up, get an education, and so their livelihoods can be intact. And so when you have a mining company come in like this and promise all of these jobs and this kind of economic boom, it's hard for those of us in the conservation community to make the argument that the mine's not a good thing. And the clear cutting is not a good thing for that matter. And so we fought a battle in court. We actually have a court date of May 19th with our appeal with the Forest Service against Ascot Resources. The past couple of years, to our advantage, they have not done much drilling, if any at all, but it looks like they might ramp up if they can this year. And part of that is based on the way that the mineral prices fluctuate in the United States, and also apart from we had a very successful public information campaign over the past couple of years. And that was reaching out to the rural communities, up past Longview and Kelso and Helens County, and also a great blast through social media. That's been a windfall for us in terms of our outreach. And when we talk to people and really sit down and have great conversations, we can make the argument that the promises from a mining company or a speculation firm aren't something to be taken lightly and aren't something to always be believed. So our concern is that they have 900 acres proposed. They've drilled approximately 140 holes so far. If they find anything, if it's copper, if it's silver, if it's gold, they'll sell it off. They'll sell it off to a larger mining corporation, and the ultimate outcome could be the potential for a 3,000-acre open pit mine, which would not only be a visual blight, but would be a devastation of the environment as well. So I mentioned that it's a mile off the Green River. That's a gene bank for fish, for endangered fish species. It was the source of clean drinking water for the communities of Kelso and Longview. They've since moved to an aquifer. Oh, there we go. You still hear me? Perfect. They've since moved to an aquifer, but they use that river as a drawdown for agricultural purposes. So when you have a mining company come in, there's a whole host of issues. There's more roads being used. There's sediment washout into the river. There's proprietary lubrication for their drill bits to actually get through the bedrock and to get the minerals out. There's mineral leaching, there's acidification, and all of that is in the Green River watershed and ultimately end up in the river, which will end up in the water that's sprayed on these fields and ultimately drank by people in Southwest Washington. So that's a huge issue. The fact that it's so close in proximity to old growth forest presents another problem. And that we work tirelessly to protect old growth forests, and putting a mine there would make a huge impact, not only in the ecology, but also the health of the trees and the soil development there as well. So it's been a long haul for us, and I don't want to talk too much because this is Bill's show. But that's kind of the brief background there. And I do want to introduce Bill. I'm very glad to have him here. He came all the way from Arizona. Our introduction was great. We were reached out to by Bill's publicist, Mike. He heard about our efforts to prevent the mine and thought, hey, we should connect, the task force and Bill. Bill has a great history, not only of authorship about, copper mining in the United States, but also many other things. So I'm going to make sure that I read so I don't miss anything for his background while I introduce him. So Bill Carter is the critically acclaimed author of 3 nonfiction books. It's Fools Rush In, Red Summer, and Boom Bust Boom, and the director of the award-winning documentary film Miss Sarajevo, which was produced by Bono in a lead singer review too. His books have been shortlisted by experts ranging from BBC to Nancy Pearl. Carter has held more than 50 lectures at universities around the world discussing his opposition to the proposed Pebble Mine in Alaska and his role as a humanitarian during the Bosnian War, where he organized a satellite connection with U2 during the height of the siege. He was also involved in the setting up of the U2 concert in 1997 in Sarajevo. And in 2009, he was recognized with honorary citizenship of the city of Sarajevo, a role typically reserved for the heads of state. So it's my honor and pleasure tonight to introduce Bill Carter to come on down and talk a little bit about his expertise and work as a great author, especially about copper mining in the United States. Bill, thank you very much.
I'm Bill. Thanks for having me at the task force, and I've just kind of met the people that run it today, and it's really great being here. I've been here many times to the Portland, Vancouver area. It's one of my favorite spots in the United States, so it's great to be back. I have to tell you that in my 3 years of researching this book and kind of living in this world, I didn't even know about the drilling aspect at this Mount St. Helens spot. So it's new to me, but it doesn't really matter because it's the same players. It's almost like the most ridiculous story you've ever heard, or never heard, actually. So I'm going to just, what I'm going to do here tonight is kind of help you understand a few things. And we're going to start with understanding our role in this. Because if you want to fight something effectively, you need to understand your role in this too. Meaning, what are you doing to contribute to this mess? And that's just you, by the way, all of us. When I say you, I mean all of us. Because we're all involved in this. And then if you kind of know that, you can also have a better conversation with mining companies because they use that against you. They always use that against you. So we're going to just start with some numbers, okay? And the numbers are going to help you understand our position in this copper cycle. And I'm just going to read some of these out because they're kind of amazing. Your car has about 50 pounds of copper. If you have a Prius, it's about 100 pounds of copper. Your house, 400 pounds. So now, just stop right there and think about places like India or China. China's building 20 cities a year that will hold 1 million people or more, waiting for the 100 million people to come in from the rural districts in the next 10 years. Those are houses. Those are apartment buildings. They all have a vast amount of copper. The 747, 135 miles of copper in a 747 jet. The nuclear submarine, that's a big one, 200,000 pounds. And then, of course, chocolate, which is, that's a natural thing. You understand also copper is in us naturally. It's in our blood. Without it, we die. Too much of it, we die. We get it naturally a lot from nuts, certain vegetables. It's just kind of a naturally occurring metal in our lives. When it's like that, it's fine. We have other problems when we start mining. The one that you probably we're all most familiar with our phones and computers is 1.5 pounds of copper in a computer on average. And the billion computers in the world is going to go to 2 to 3 billion very soon. Same with cell phones. 16 grams in a cell phone, etc., etc., etc. This is the number that should really worry you when you have to think about a copper mine near your home area. That map that Max showed you, not the map, but the green, the forest with the river. It takes 100 tons of earth in a copper mine to make a half a ton of copper. We're going to get to this a little later, but your problem isn't the half a ton of copper. Your problem is the 99.5 tons that they are sitting there forever. That's your problem. And we'll get into that in a minute, but that's your real problem. And this is the last one here. I thought the top one, the total amount of copper plumbing in the United States since 1963, 5.5 million miles. And growing. Because copper is basically the way that you plumb your house. I mean, PEX is a nice thing, but PEX is not used on a big scale. It's mostly copper. And the next one is the one you should know also is copper mining, hard rock mining. Hard rock mining is a very particular definition to the United States government and the EPA. It's basically gold and copper. It's also some other things too, but it's a certain kind of mining. It's not coal, it's not taconite, iron ore. It's gold and copper. And it is the largest toxic polluter to the water systems in the United States. Always has been since it's been around. It's the #1 polluter. There's a reason for that. It's what the 99 tons creates. So we're going to get to that too. The Superfund sites is 156, which will cost between 7 and 24 billion, and that's paid for by United States citizens, sometimes by copper mining companies and other mining companies, but largely in our history, these companies go bankrupt, they disappear, there's a shell game, The CEO pops up at another company 5 years later. Nobody busts him. That's the way it goes. That's how it kind of works. And this one is the one that, when I started researching this book, I became fixated and completely overwhelmed by this information right here. If you want to mine on federal land, which, by the way, let me ask you, I don't need to be ignorant about this particular issue. Is this federal or state? Okay, let's just pretend. So you have a Canadian company. We'll get to them in a minute. You have a Canadian company. They're going to come in here. They're going to try to get permits. Let's pretend they go the whole distance. Let's pretend they start making money. They're not going to give $1 to the United States Treasury in royalties. That is, I can't believe that actually happens, but it's true. And they pay $5 an acre to mine on that land. This goes back to like the cost and benefit analysis of, hey, let's have a copper mine because it'll give you jobs and you're going to make money. That's not a lot of money. I mean, yes, there's taxes and state payroll taxes, but they don't have enough upfront taxes on them. Like oil and gas. If you do oil and gas in the United States, foreign or domestic company, you pay 8 to 12%. Why don't they pay 8 to 12%? Does anybody know the answer? I'm sure you do, or some of you do. The 1872 Mining Law Act. It was created in 1872, obviously, around the same time as the Homestead Act, which was to push this country to the west. And so it allowed people to have mines and make money and not really have to worry about paying anybody for it. Well, that made sense 140 years ago when we were basically decimating an entire culture out here, but it doesn't make sense 140 years on. And a lot of people are trying to change it, and they've been stymied in Congress for a very long time. One of the most depressing things about the 1872 Mining Law Act, in the recent carnation of trying to change it, is the person who's the head person trying to stop it. Do you know who that is? Harry Reid. Harry Reid is your leader of many of you. I don't know what party you're all from, but he's the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate. He's also from Searchlight, Nevada. His dad was a gold miner. Nevada is experiencing a world-class, massive gold rush right now. So Harry Reid is not going to do anything to change that law. So basically, whatever happens with other senators in the House to try to change things, he just never lets it he never lets it get to the Senate floor. So, just a little lesson in politics aren't always what you think they are. No offense there. The last one is just kind of a little reminder of our role in this thing. It should be no surprise to you that we are the largest exporter of scrap metal on the earth, by far. Why? Because we use the most crap. We like to use it once. My one car, I used it for 5 years, I'm now getting rid of it. My refrigerator broke, I don't know how to fix it, I'm throwing it away. So we export all this stuff all the time, and it goes to China, who makes all this stuff, and so that's the cycle of how it goes down with us. This is who makes copper. Chile, as you can see, is by far the largest producer of copper in the world. Like by far, has been since the Industrial Revolution. 150 years or so, they've been the biggest player. Of course, Peru, China makes a lot of copper, but they don't have nearly enough copper in their country for their needs to make copper. I mean, to produce products from copper. We make a lot of copper too, but we don't have enough. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, my point of showing you these numbers is to let you understand that if we're going to have these conversations with these mining companies, if you're just protesting out of just because you're mad, it's somewhat ineffective against mining companies. You have to understand your role in this. When they say, hey, you know what, you need your car, you need your computer, you're like, I do. You're right. I like my car, I like my computer. However, apples and oranges, it doesn't mean you have to mine on top of my river or on top of my water source. And so, you have to kind of change the conversation because they're going to pin you on that. They always do. And, they're right in some ways, right? This is a pretty alarming trend. This is copper production, basically copper consumption. And this is 2010. 2020 would be way above that. 2030 would be even farther above that. So what's the basic point? We're going to need more copper. Where are we going to get it? Okay, that's a big problem. And now I'm going to just kind of backtrack a little second here and just tell you about my story and how I got into this book to make it really personal. All of my story, all of my books, all of my work for 20 years has always been from something that I was kind of doing naturally, living somewhere. You know, I was in a war. It was a long story there, but I was, and it became something that I wrote about. I didn't go there to write a book. I became a commercial fisherman in Alaska, in the Bristol Bay, and realized, wow, these are amazing people. I'm going to write a story about this. That's also where I learned about Pebble Mine for the very first time. It got me very involved in Pebble Mine, which then kind of triggered this book. But I lived in this town. Has anybody ever been to Bisbee? What? That is beautiful. Okay, don't tell me all of you love it, right? Okay, great place, right? Fun, kind of eclectic, artistic, goofy, interesting people. I love Bisbee. I traveled all over the world many, many times. In the United States, I don't always know where to live. And I found Bisbee, and I thought, oh man, I love it here. But Bisbee has a particular history. It was one of the largest copper mines in the United States, in the world, in its heyday. This little tiny town, which this is kind of the new part of town, the old town is up here, was the biggest town between St. Louis and San Francisco in 1900. It was a massive town. Opera houses, streetcars, trolleys, it was crazy. Had a lot of money. But it was a very large mine, and where my hand is, there used to be a very large mountain. And that mountain is now this. This is that mountain. And unfortunately, it's also right in town. If you drive through this part of town, this is just endlessly acidic acid drainage pumping down that hill. You know, the weird thing about it, this is my point of telling you this story. I'm a smart guy. I've traveled. I feel like I'm an aware human being, just like all of you. You're very aware. That's why you're here tonight. I lived in the town for 10 years, and I really didn't think about the copper. I didn't really think about it at all. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting kind of Western history. That's kind of interesting. I didn't think about it. What is it? Until I bought a house, got married, bought a house, I had a kid, and then my wife was pregnant with our second child, and I was making a garden. And I was very involved. I love gardening, so I was really involved in the garden. Dirt and drainage systems, and oh Lord, so many trips to the hardware store, I almost shot myself. So I was really involved in this garden, and then the garden started producing. And then I started eating the vegetables and the food, and I kept being in the garden, kept being very excited. My wife was like, I'm not going to eat any of that. I'm like, hey, I made this. This is like the best. She said, no. The instinct of the mom kicked in. I got very ill. At the same time, the company that owns Bisbee, essentially, owns the mine, had started to test all the soil in Bisbee, and was starting to replace all the soil. They came to my house, and it was very high arsenic and lead in the dirt. I had high arsenic and lead in my blood. So the sickness was very violent. It went away as soon as I stopped being around the dirt. But they replaced everything 2 feet deep. They have now spent 5 years and around $60 million replacing almost every single home in Bisbee. And ironically, last night, that was a couple years ago, last night, I got a phone call from Freeport-McMoRan, which is the mining company. The largest mining company in the world is, the largest copper mining company in the world is Freeport-McMoRan, based in Phoenix. They called me last night and said, there's a new program. If you had your house, if you had your property reclaimed for soil, we're now offering a service where we will come inside your house, you leave, and we will go through your entire home, your heating ducts, because they realize that there's a lot of this stuff inside of our homes now too. So now they're going to do the insides of our house. So Now, to be fair, and to be accurate, Freeport-McMoran did not cause this problem that happened to me or that town. They bought Phelps Dodge. Phelps Dodge was the world's biggest copper mine. They bought it in 2007, and they kind of inherited this kind of not super fun, but this site. So they're cleaning it up, which is, it's a good neighbor, right? We're going to get to the good neighbor part in a second. That's Bisbee, just to show that. That's the open pit in Bisbee. That's where the mountain was, basically. It's an extraordinary. People been to mines, copper mines. If you haven't, means you've been to Arizona, probably. I mean, most likely. They're kind of amazing in some weird, like, small kid way. You know, you're like, wow, this is big and big toys. And it's kind of amazing. Okay, I want to talk about this place. Max talked about something that the copper mine companies, when they come to a town and they want to make a mine, the number one thing they start with is this. We're going to bring you jobs. That's what we're going to do. We're going to bring you jobs. And good paying jobs. On average, really good paying jobs. That's what they're selling. That's the big lure in your face. The reason my book is called Boom, Bust, Boom is because that's the boom. That's the boom. The first time they come to town is the boom. They start laying a little money out. They get a couple people that are important to the community. They get something going on. The high school gets another statue, or I don't know. Something happens. And then if they get the mine, you get a big boom. You get a big boom. This is the bust. When mining companies leave your town, they don't leave a nice little note behind or a fruit basket. They just leave. This is Clifton, Arizona. Do you know where Clifton is? It's right next to Morenci. Morenci is the largest mine in the United States. The largest producing mine in the United States. And Clifton is basically a neighbor town. And it had its heyday. But now these are all obviously shut down. It's totally, Now Morenci still operates, but Clifton doesn't get any benefits anymore. Because it's not part of the company town. Morenci is a company town, meaning everything's owned by the company. The cops, the teachers, the bartender. It's weird. It's a very, very strange place to go get a hotel room. And this is Morenci. It's really hard for you sitting there to get the scale of this place. And you would never have this kind of thing up here. I'm just telling you, you wouldn't. This has been open for 100 years. And it is unbelievably large. There's the highway, which is ironically called Highway 666. It goes right through the mine. So you're just driving like through this mine, and big, massive trucks are going underneath these. It's a crazy world. It's like being in Jurassic Park for mines. Morenci's, I don't know how clear it is over there, but Morenci's down, Clifton's down there. Kind of you see some buildings in the far distance there. And Morenci's more up here. And those big things out there, those white patches, those are your tailings piles. And tailings piles are what, let's talk about copper for a second. When it forms in the earth 150 million years ago, it comes up pressurized, volcanic, something's happening. It comes up, it doesn't come up alone, it comes up with things like uranium, cesium, arsenic, lead, whatever. It all comes up together. So when they take copper out of it, when they take ore out of the earth with a big old shovel, and they put it in a dump truck, they got to get the copper out of that rock. Okay? Okay, when they get a rock, when they get enough ore that has copper in it, they put it into basically a tumbler, a massive tumbler. It just, it makes it into talcum powder. Essentially, it makes it into talcum powder. And from there, they will extract the copper. The talcum powder is the stuff out there. It has a lot of other metals in it. The tailings pile, the waste rock pile, the other 99 tons that they don't want, has all those heavy metals, and it's just sitting there. And that is what will pollute your river. That will absolutely, without a doubt, pollute your river. I've been in rooms like this where a mining company, is anybody here from a mining company? It's okay if you are. I have nothing against you, kind of. But it's okay. Because I've been in a room where the mining companies are there and I'm talking like this, and I say, can anybody in this room, and if you're a mining company guy, please stand up and tell me, is there any open pit copper mine in the world, but let's talk about America, that does not eventually pollute the water system and the aquifer around it? There's none. There is none. They don't exist. So then one of the lines they will tell you is, it's not your grandfather's mine. We don't mine like we used to. It's new technology, etc., etc., etc. That's beautiful. That just sounds fantastic. I got jobs. I got clean mine. Hey, it's not possible. And it's not possible for a couple of reasons. Not because they're not smart. Not because they want to pollute your river. It's not possible because you have billions and billions and billions of tons of rock sitting in a mountain form. And the size of that is beyond your imagination. How do you contain that? If it's just being rained on and all for decades and decades and decades and leaking off, there's no way to really stop it. They don't know how to stop it. They can kind of curve it this way and they can kind of curve it that way, but eventually it will get into the aquifer in the water system. And they'll try very hard for it not to, but it will get there. And I'm not sitting up here because I'm making this up. There are no examples of it working. It might work in 20 years. It might work, for the first 20 years. The first 50 years. It might work. In Bisbee, Arizona, that open pit mine closed down in 1975. 1975. So 85, 95, that's like 4 years ago, right? In Bisbee, we have a large tailing pile. It has now created in the ground a large sulfuric acid plume that's going toward our aquifer. And they have no idea how to stop it. They're digging deep wells, very, very deep, to try to make it go down there for a while before it comes back up and keeps going, but really there's no way to stop it. Salt Lake City, you know the Kennecott mine? It's a really big mine outside Salt Lake City. It's the largest physical mine in the world, not producing, but physical. It has been leaked for about 25 years to no one's knowledge, sulfuric acid into the aquifer. It is a massive plume that they really can't even drink water in those communities around there anymore because it's inside the water. Okay, remember I talked about the good neighbor part? Freeport-McMoRan, the people who run the show in Bisbee, they're doing pretty good neighbors. They're fixing up our yards, they're spending a lot of money. Whenever I talk to the guys in town, they're pretty cool. Okay, they also own this mine. And I'm going to tell you about this mine, not because you're ever going to have a mine like this in Washington. You never would have this kind of mine. But there's a reason you need to understand this, because this is who your mining companies don't think like you. They don't think like you at all. This is Grasberg Mine in West Irian Jaya. So it's in basically Papua New Guinea, but on the western side, the Indonesian side. It is the largest gold mine in the world, third largest copper mine. It is absolutely impossible to go there. It is controlled entirely by military, hired by Freeport-McMoRan. They got busted for that. It was run by the military. They got busted for that in 2005 by basically the United States. It's illegal to hire a foreign government's military as a private security system, but they did, and they got busted. Now they have basically the Blackwater Company, which became what, XE, or I forgot the name of them now, but it's another company. It's 100 miles from the sea to this mine, or 100 kilometers, sorry. This is 15,000 feet. This really is absolutely the most amazing mine you could ever imagine. It is the tallest mountain between the Himalayas and the Andes is this mountain. The Dutch found this, they called it the Black Rock. They found it in the 1600s when they owned Indonesia. They didn't know what it was. Just a black rock. Essentially, it was a piece of black. It was copper. It was like a massive mountain of copper. Someone found it in, someone basically went up there, a prospector in the 70s, and kind of staked his claim, and Freeport bought it. And they made deals with Sukarno and Suharto and really ran a private operation and have made just an enormous amount of money out of this place. It's beyond scope how rich this mine is. It also, Morenci, Arizona, I told you was the biggest mine in the United States. They have 4,000, at the very peak of production, they have about 4,000 workers. This mine has 18,000 workers. And you can tell it's glaciers, right? It's really amazing, actually. But the problem is they're dumping 300,000 pounds, 300,000 tons every single day into 2 river systems. Just dumping it, which has now created a 30-mile plume into the sea, basically in that area. And there's indigenous tribes that live here that have protested for as long as they've been there, and they've been killing them, literally, physically killing them, poisoning them, putting them in prison. It's a private fiefdom. The reason I'm bringing it up is this is the same company of the nice guys who live in my town. So, you know, these corporations have a different way of operating than we kind of can ever imagine. They get away with what they can get away with. In this place, they can get away with a lot. In the United States, they can't, which is really good. That's the road, you know. And just to give you a size of scale of this mine, there's about 90 of these little things right here. See the arrows right there? And those are those. So if you have a mine, you're going to have a lot of these in your neighborhood. And the last industrial accident in Arizona with a mine, with a copper mine, was 2 guys came down to inspect the truck. We're here in front of the truck. A driver got in and just ran over. These hold about 600 tons of earth per load. Okay, I'm going to bring up Pebble Mine. Has everybody heard about Pebble Mine? Maps. I know that we're talking about Mount St. Helens, but the reason I'm talking about all these other things is because they're kind of important to understand the lay of the land of who you're dealing with. Not even the junior company, because that's kind of a different animal. But if they get bought out by a bigger company, I'm going to be really honest with you. My personal opinion is this junior company won't do anything. Okay, I'm not trying to dissolve your task force or to make you not be very, very strong, because I think what you're doing is incredibly important. I was talking to Jessica, and you're doing something that is becoming a new trend, which is really fantastic. You're preempting the preemptive talk. You're standing up when they're trying to drill. That's beautiful. Most people don't even get involved in that. Most people start to get a little bit alarmed when they start getting a permitting process. And you guys are way ahead of that. And that's great. They need to know that there's people here who care. Because people who care are translated through a very difficult algorithm, a pain in the ass. And that matters to them because it also means it's money. You're going to cost them money. And they don't like to spend money, and so that's a really good thing. I've been to communities that have real mines about to go online or really being permitted, and they're very scared. And they should be very scared, because usually it's about water. If someone were to tell me, and I make this argument in my book, Ajo, Arizona, it's a community in the middle of nowhere. They had a mine that closed down in 1983. I am almost positive that if I went to that town and I said, hey, you guys want to open that mine again? That town would be like, please, because it's totally broke. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, that's not a bad place to have a mine, to be honest with you. And the people there are really steeped in mining traditions, so I would say, all right, okay. If you want to mine in the Santa Rita Mountains in southern Arizona, which feeds 20% of the aquifer to Tucson, which is over 1 million people, maybe not. Because it's water that is going into people's bodies. And I think that what we're talking about here is really the argument that's going to happen for the next 50 to 100 years in this country and broader in this world. We're extracting minerals and metals at an unbelievable pace on Earth. We also have a big population, and we're growing, and and we're running out. We have food sources that we need to identify and keep safe, and same with water. If those 2 things start to be in the same backyard, if you will, the extraction and the water source, you have a very large philosophical problem of what you're going to decide as a civilization. Okay, I can have a lot more phones, but I'm going to die 10 years earlier from some bizarre heavy metal that's in my body. And we need to decide this on a very large scale, not this room. And I think it's going to become an incredibly, it's going to be the source of a lot of conversation in the next decade or generation. And when I go to these towns, they want help. Okay, they want help to figure out how to stop a mine that's near a clean water source. And I say to them, okay, I'm going to be really blunt. If you don't know about Pebble Mine and you're not willing to stop Pebble Mine, you don't have a chance. You just do not have a chance at the table. It doesn't mean you don't need to fight, but you need to stop this one. The good news is, I think we stopped it. Yeah, pretty amazing. I'm going to tell you about it because I don't know if you can read this. This is an amazing place, but I'm not going to go into it too much. They were going to build one of the largest mines in the world, a copper mine, at essentially the headwaters, 14 miles from the headwaters, of the largest salmon run on Earth. I don't know if you've ever been to this area. I'm sure you haven't. It's very remote. It's Lake Iliamna. If you haven't been to this part of Alaska, it's tundra. Okay, tundra is like walking on a waterbed, right? It's just water. It's like sponge water. You're just walking. They were seriously telling me to my face, and all these communities and all these people, we will not leak this into that lake. And you're like, okay, literally, this is water. This is water that we're standing on. And you're going to put 10 billion tons on that. You think that's not going to go into that lake? And then we'll literally tell you no. And that's just like insanity. So, long story is that a lot of people got involved. We had 1 million comments in the EPA period against the mine, which is really unheard of. And this will be the mine site. And the good news is that the EPA has now invoked the Clean Water Act 404C, and basically this mine now will die. The big money this is a great example for you guys. The junior company that came into this mine claim was called Northern Dynasty out of Vancouver, like they all are. They came in, they don't have any money. And they never have enough money to do this kind of thing. And they don't know how to do it, to be really honest. But they got a big player. They got Anglo-American, one of the largest mining companies on Earth, worth about $150 billion. They invested. They put up a big fight. They did a lot of work. They were going to spend about $20 billion to make the mine. They pulled out after the EPA report and after the comment period. The second investor was Rio Tinto, another massive player in the mining world. They pulled out. So now what do you have? You have advertised to the entire world that the only person left is a junior company in Vancouver, facing a $16 billion fight to make a mine and maybe billions more to fight in court. It's not going to happen. The good news. You guys have a junior company. We have to talk about junior companies for a second. There's a reason that they're on that. Max kind of hinted at it, but he went right past it a little bit about the stock market in Canada. Canada has a really strange system. We have, when you want to become on the ticket in the United States, in the New York Stock Exchange, you have to have a lot of filings with the SEC, you have business plans, you have to have proof, you have a lot of stuff to get on the ticker. In Canada, you don't. So almost all the junior mining companies on Earth, almost all of them, are based in Canada. And what they do it all in the United States. They go to places like here. They get a little spot, and they try to. It's no different than. I'm trying to think of a good example, but they don't need to find much. They need to find a little bit to try to churn the stock, to try to make money. And quite often these guys disappear. Your problem is if they actually find a pretty good deposit. If they were to explore and find a big company is not going to come into this place unless they can see like a 20 to 30-year mine. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be here for like 10 years. It's not worth it. If they find something that can sustain 20 to 30 years, you will have a new battle on your hands. But, and that's get paid off and they'll disappear and they'll be gone. So your biggest problem is paying attention to these core samples if they do them. If you don't do them, it's even better for you. Because from that map, there's a river running right through this property. I don't, you know, junior companies are there to make money. These guys that are talking to you right now, they're from that company, right? They're the ones who are talking to the community. From my understanding, they have 2 failed diamond mines and a failed gold mine. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to make money. That's it. It's really simple. I had a really interesting conversation. Mining companies are the most, besides oil companies and maybe military companies, they're very difficult to talk to. They do not speak to you. There's a very quiet, secret society amongst miners. Not the blue-collar guy, but I'm talking about the people who run mining companies. They're not really open to the public for obvious reasons. But for some reason, that I could never figure out, I was invited into a few very exclusive conversations. And probably the most interesting one was with the head of exploration for Freeport-McMoRan. So if you translate that, he's essentially the world's leading prospector. He's the biggest copper miner company in the world. He's their guy who finds deposits all over the planet. He's a really cool guy. Basically, he's just a guy who grew up loving rocks. He just has a real passion for it, and I can understand that. He's a really nice man. He's very intelligent. And I asked him about juniors and how they operate. Like, how does this work? He's like, well, here's what's going on. We don't waste our time trying to get permits and trying to explore. That's not what we do. They do it for us. We sometimes even finance them, but they do it for us. In the world right now, there's about 250 spots that I'm watching, run by juniors. Of those, it will start to go through a system, maybe half of them immediately out. Then that keeps going, that keeps going, that keeps going. It will eventually, out of all those 250, we'll pick one. One will go online. That's pretty amazing. Now, they're one company. Now, you've got to times that times, X amount of big companies. So let's say 5 to 10 mines. So there's a lot, my point to you is there's a lot of junior companies doing this in a lot of places right now in this country because the metals have been very up. And we all know now the metals have taken a little bit of they've kind of softened right now, so people are being a little bit quiet. Production's starting to fall off in a lot of mines. But if it gets going again, which they probably will, they'll suddenly appear again. Anyways, that's the juniors. Don't be, they're just selling your stock. Oh, yeah, okay. So, the slide, that's all it is for the slides. And I kind of want to open it up for questions because it helps steer your concerns or your issues or your thoughts. And we can kind of just have a conversation if that's okay with you guys. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anger? Yeah.
Just want to ask you how the family is. You're digging the dirt in your yard there. And
they're fine. The funny thing is, like I said, my wife, she's, first of all, she's absolutely abysmal gardener. I mean, I could leave a eucalyptus tree, she'd kill it. You know what I mean? So she just doesn't get involved. So it kind of actually really helped us. I was a little worried about my oldest daughter because she was with me a lot. But she, for my good luck, she hates anything that's like remotely looks like a vegetable or a salad. So that also helped us out a lot. So everybody's fine. And also these kind of things, lead is probably in the long run, I don't know, for me. But these kind of metals, especially arsenic, once you are not constantly exposed to it, it kind of goes away. Now the long-term effect, I don't know. I'm hoping I'm here in 30 years, but I don't know the answer to those things. I also don't really worry about them. They're fine. The city is fine because really everything has been replaced. But it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing. So. But my biggest worry is, like if you take Morenci, the place that in Arizona, the biggest mine. This is a mine that a lot of mining industry holds up as a good example. They have what they call a self-contained leaching system. Leaching is how they get the copper out of the rock. And it's a natural process that happens to the waste rock, which is rain and air. Just decays it over decades and decades and decades, thousands of years actually. What they need to do is get it out faster. So what they do is they put it in these massive piles and have an incredibly elaborate sprinkler system that basically rains sulfuric acid on top of the copper, on top of the fields of talcum powder. That leaks through over months and weeks and years down to the bottom. And at the bottom they have big, not a tarp, but whatever, it's underneath there. And it drains into a pipe and it goes and they process it. That's how they get the copper out. Okay, and they use the sulfuric acid, they get it back out, they use it again, they use it again, they use it again. Self-contained. So you have a lot less leaking. Here's the problem. And this is they never really talk about this. You could say, that's great, you have a self-contained sulfuric acid system, you're not going to leak. That's fantastic. But here's the problem. The guy who drove the ship into Valdez when he was drunk at night is also working at mines. I'm not trying to pick on that one guy, although he probably deserves it. I'm trying to say that we are there. We're there. Human beings are there. A couple years ago, a guy dumped 160,000 gallons of that sulfuric acid in the San Francisco River in Morenci. Oh, sorry, my bad. They paid a penalty to the state, and that's all that happens. Well, that just killed a bunch of, I mean, my point is that they can run a perfect mine, but we're also there. We're going to screw up. And that's what you have to realize when they're talking to you. Sorry, questions? Yeah?
I have a question. Are you concerned about that the tailing piles, if they're like talcum powder and they have these metal, lead and arsenic, the wind picking that up and breathing it in?
It's huge.
How do you deal with that?
It's just huge. In southern Arizona is one of the biggest copper belts in the world. And we have 10 massive copper mines. South of Tucson, we have a few of them. One of them is very close to Tucson, and it has enormous tailings piles and waste rock. There's statutes, there's laws in place, especially with the company in Tucson, that if the wind, if you have too much blowing off at any one day, they get fined. And in a big windy day, which Arizona's home of the haboob, right? So we have big winds that come and just blows that stuff right into Tucson. It's full of all this stuff. And most citizens don't even know what's happening. And the only thing we hear is that 2 months later, Freeport-McMoRan had to pay $80,000 to the state. So my point, it's just a cost of business to them. But it happens all the time. Now, again, to give them credit, the industry is trying, they'll water it, they dampen it, they dampen the roads, they try to do that. There's all kinds of things they do, but if you have a big wind, it doesn't really matter. A worse example is in Cananea. Cananea is in Mexico. And it's about, from Bisbee, it's about 30 miles. It's part of the copper belt. It's Mexico's biggest mine. Very, very huge deposit. It'll be around for 150 years. And it's been around already for 100 years. They have that, that kind of white, talcum powder spot. Theirs is, it's enormous. Like Salt Lake City, Salt Lake, it's enormous. They don't do anything. So it just blows every day. Massive amounts of silica, essentially, straight toward the United States, toward Bisbee. In Canada, they have an enormously high rate of people dying from basically kind of like what we call black lung. It's the silica, it's the stuff in that powder that gets in their lungs and kills them. I mean, I've talked to so many families that somebody in their family died from it because the entire town is somehow connected to the mine. Those kind of towns, Cananea, Morenci, Baghdad, Arizona, Ajo, they're very tied. They have a lot of history. They put their kids through college. There's a lot of nostalgia that goes on in those towns. But there's also a lot of hatred for the companies. It's a weird dynamic when you go to these towns. But in terms of what you spoke about tonight and what you're dealing with, the economic benefits to those towns is anywhere near what they promise. Like, not even, it's ridiculous. I can assure you, the people that come to work a mine are not from here. They're experts. They're people that come from mining places like South Africa, Canada, big Australia, maybe even Arizona or Chile. You guys don't have any copper mines sitting around here, do you? So you don't, they're going to hire people that know how to do it. Now they're going to have some people here that do, some basic work. But the people who really run the show, hydrologists, geologists, structural engineers, there'll be people that know how to do it. They'll be from probably another country. At the very least, they'll be from either Utah or Arizona. Another question? Yeah.
Is there an alternative to copper?
That's a good question. I get asked that. There's the basic, the quick answer is scrap, recycling. But people want that to be the answer because it's fantastic, but it's not enough. It's a really important part of the economic model of the copper industry. Like when the supply gets really tight, then the copper scrap metal market becomes very profitable, and that's when you see a lot of theft and you see a lot of scrap. And so yes, it does it has a role. But when you're talking about India becoming the largest country on earth, having the most amount, putting out 60,000 cars a day, we can't keep up with what we're doing on earth. And so in that sense, we need copper. There is a new, like a graphite coming out that's being explored that I've recently learned about that's pretty fascinating. It's the thinnest material that we know of, and it's the lightest. And they don't have it in an industrial form, they don't even have it in a way that we can really use. But one of the things about it that's incredibly unique is it's a perfect conductor of heat, which would be the answer to copper. Copper's greatest asset is that it's a great conductor of heat and it's malleable. So plumbers love it because they can bend it, and you can put it in your phone and it doesn't burn your phone down. They tried to replace copper in the 70s when the price got really high. They tried to replace it with aluminum, but houses burned down because of the wiring. It wouldn't cut it. So there's no known replacement, but I bet you there will be. But that's easy to say, right? We're going to be replaced, and we're going to, so we're going to have computers in our brains. It's going to be, I don't know what the world holds, but I'm sure that we'll probably discover something. But the thing is, just like green technology, we know what the answer is. There's a lot of roadblocks, political, economic, big business, corporate, to get there. And I think the same thing will be with copper. And another thing to really remember about copper is, and you might know this, but is one of the things that I was fascinated by, is it's not new. Copper has been the most important metal for thousands of years. It became the most important metal when electricity was invented. It became the metal. But, the Romans, I'm always amazed when people think that Romans fought over something like women, or I don't know. They fought to get copper. That's basically what they fought about. Copper and tin to make arms that made their weapons. They conquered England, and they invaded England to get the copper and tin. They invaded Spain for the same reason. There's a mine in Spain called Rio Tinto, which happens to be the name, the mining company got their name from the mine. It's also a river, which is red from the acidic runoff from that mine. That mine is 4,000 years old and still operating today. Cyprus means copper in Latin, because it was the copper, that was the empire, that was the center of the copper industry for the Romans. The Egyptians had a massive copper running empire in the Sinai. So this is something that's been around for a very long time, and people have been fighting over it, using it. It's actually an incredible metal. It just happens to be, we've got to the scale now where it's a real problem of how we get it out of the earth. Am I just talking about Max? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. He's standing like I think he's going to hit me or something. Yeah.
So I've had people say, we've got all this technology in North America to do it right, and so do you want to mine it here, or do you want to mine it down in Peru, in Chile, where they have no, the laws are much more lax, you don't have EPA like we do watch over them. What do you say?
You know what? Oh, I'm sorry. He was saying that a common thing that copper mining officials will say to you is, and in many ways this is correct, they will say, hey, if we don't mine it, you're asking me now to go to Africa or to some other place that has no laws. At least we do have laws, and we'll just dump in every single river we can and kill everybody. You know, that's basically what they're saying. In some ways, they're right, because that's the example I gave you about Grasberg. Grasberg is where they do it wrong, right? That's the other example. What you want to say is, can you please do it right wherever you go? But their real answer is corporate is not going to do that. They're going to do it with what they can get away with. It's a really big issue, and it's a very complex thing, and I don't know if I know the answer. I think that you want to put it on them, but they're not going to take it. Just by the way, Chile and Peru actually do it really well, especially Chile. Chile's been doing it for a long time. They mine for copper really quite efficiently. I don't know. You know, you have a place like China, which has on average around 4,000 to 5,000 deaths a year from all mining, mostly coal. We have very little deaths. Our problem is more pollution oriented. Just to take that example, make it even more depressing. China, which if you probably loosely follow the news, you realize that they are now choking to death. They can't even breathe in their cities. That's mostly from coal, but it's, you know, copper mining, everything's part of it. China is literally just going to die from like asphyxiation. One of the reasons also is smelters. They have a massive amount of smelters in that country for smelting like things like copper that come from us, or in Chile. They're now starting to export the smelters to Africa. They're building dozens of smelters in Zaire, the Congo, Angola, various places in exchange for raw materials. China doesn't have enough raw materials, so they're basically making deals with various African nations. And the trade exchange between China and Africa about 10 years ago was around 6 billion, and today it's close to 100 billion. So they're doing this, and they're doing it fast, really, really fast. But unfortunately, it's a tough one. But it doesn't mean that they have to pollute your water, and the problem is they don't have an answer how not to. So what we need to do as a country, not as a person talking in the room with them, is say, let's change this law so that you have to have this. You can mine, but you have to mine like this, and you have to put money in a fund to clean up your messes, which they never do. And you know, we have to hold it to a different standard, because right now, you probably don't know this, but the way the 1872 mining law is written, the U.S. Forest Service, which has a lot of power over these decisions, cannot say no. Do you understand that? They cannot say no. The only thing they can do is say, you have to do this. So if you can rise above this bar, if you can get your mining plan to address these issues, then we will say yes. But they can't say no. Their mandate is to, I forgot the language, basically to use the land wisely to manage it, to make money, and to et cetera. That's why they have cattle leasing. That's why they have mines. So they are mandated to help the mines be made on land. So we need to change a few things, not to shut mining down, but to have a more intelligent way about how we do it, and more importantly, where we do it. Next to clean water is probably not the right place to put a mine. Someone else? Yes?
Yeah, speaking as an educator,
Yeah.
I've seen a change through the years of more and more students with autism.
Uh-huh.
I know there was a whole big thing about immunizations, that sort of thing. But the doctors have done research now and find that this is something that's happening in utero. So
Even-
it must be chemical
Yes.
cause and that sort of thing. What it is there's, in the cerebellum area, there are 3 layers of cells, distinct layers of cells. In infants that end up having autism, they're all mixed up. They're not even
Yeah.
the 3 layers.
I am going to throw one down. I'm going to go all in on that poker hand. Are you ready? There's even a newer study that, to me, is the most frightening part of this entire conversation. They haven't proved it totally, but they are very scared. And it would be an absolute disaster for all of us. They're now very close. There's a correlation. They don't know the link, but there's a correlation between Alzheimer's and copper. The problem is is that all of your water goes through copper. Everybody's water in your house goes through copper. So they're absolutely just petrified that if this turns out to be true, you know, we are living longer. We have a lot more Alzheimer's these days. I don't know the cause, but there's a lot more of it, and it's really, really weighing down our system. And boy, this would be really bad news if it turns out to be a direct correlation. Now, they said that about aluminum, and it kind of hasn't proved to be true that much. But there's no doubt that the metals in our life are somehow showing up in disease, or I mean, I have no doubt that's what they do. You know. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can you address the international aspect of mining, like Canadian companies prospecting in the United States, U.S. companies in New Guinea?
You mean, are they doing it, or like how they do it, or how much they do it, or
like the legality of that? How widespread is it?
It's, you know, these are multinational companies, the big ones. You know, they play on a different level, a playing field than we're aware of. I mean, there's so many examples of these big ones: Rio Tinto, American, BHP, Bennington, Freeport, Group of Mexico. They're playing all over the world. They're mining all over the world. International laws, we have the best. Europe doesn't really have any really good source of minerals. They're not really in play. Third world countries, Africa, South America, or most of South America, you know, you can do whatever you want. He's got to make a deal. The Congo has an enormous mine. It's owned by Freeport. It's called Tenke. Probably the highest grade of copper that has been found in many years. It's an enormous mine. It will be an enormous mine. It's an enormous deposit. They give 30% to the strong man, you know, whoever runs the country right now, which really nobody knows in the Congo, and they mine. That's the deal. It's really simple. Our country is really, it's very difficult. But don't let them kid you. They like to tell you that, hey, we're going to go somewhere else. We're difficult for them because we have a lot of regulations, but they like mining here. Because once you set up camp, you know the rules. You know what to pay your laborers. They're always going to get paid this. You can negotiate. You know the EPA. You know who's coming to your house. You know what's going on. In those countries, boom, it's gone the next day, right? I mean, the strong man changes, and all of a sudden it's gone. So they like mining here if they can get through the hurdles. It's more, it's easier for them to predict the long term. You know, the worst example of a miner is, I think it's mentioned in some of your literature, is Bob Freelander, they call him Toxic Bob. And he set up a mine in Colorado and poisoned it, killed the river system. It's still dead. Then he fled this country, went to Guyana and did the same thing. Killed that river system. And now he's basically one of the richest people in the world, and he operates an enormous deposit in Mongolia. He's already made a deal with the Chinese, who have built the railroad tracks and the electrical systems, and so he's just going to pump it right into China. And his really great quote, again, to tell you how people think, he got recorded at a shareholder meeting, and he said, man, this place is amazing. There's nobody there to complain. This is open land. Nobody lives in Mongolia. We can put tailings piles in. I mean, he's basically saying it's going to be a playground. So, you know, those are the guys that run the show. Run the show. Yeah.
I'm not going to list this somewhere, but I think you were talking about a lot of these junior companies being out of Vancouver, BC.
Junior companies.
And
Toronto, but
I didn't quite get the connection to how they are able to prospect here.
Oh yeah, that's the beauty of it. The mining law, the 1817 mining law, doesn't distinguish between a foreign company and a domestic company. So if you're like Bill Carter Mining Company Inc. from Vancouver, and I come down to the correct office in Salem or whatever, I don't know where I am.
Olympia.
But sorry, Olympia. You come down to the right offices and you file paperwork and you pay the $5 an acre, you're in business. That's it. It's really, you know, not right. It should be a little bit changed. So most of the big companies in the world are foreign. They're British-based or Australian. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that they have to do is be bonded in order to,
Right.
pay for the remediation. But what's the real deal? And what are they paying? How much do they have in bond, and what happens?
It's not enough. They do have to have some money. They always have to have a bond. But what happens is it usually turns out that the bond isn't big enough. Then it's, the state's left holding the bag quite often. The feds, if they can get around to it, the super fund. Because the bond is usually in place, but it isn't, maybe they have $50 million in it, but maybe the bond is $100 million. And then they're out of business maybe. To be really honest, big companies don't usually do that. Because they're in the these big companies aren't going anywhere. They're going to be around for 100, 200, 500 years. So it's not in their interest. The good news, if a big company comes here, they'll probably do the best they can. The bad news is they're here. And if they're here, they're going to be here for a long time. And they're going to keep finding new spots, and they're going to tear it up. But you'll notice that big companies in this country can't afford to have any more just bad sites without paying for them. That's why they're doing this and Bisbee, So, but the problem is the juniors and the mids also do mines, and they don't have the money. They don't put enough in there. You know this. I mean, the back end is way more expensive than the front end, and that's the way it works. It's the game, So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we can affect the international community, community and mining and whatnot, other than with our dollars. But in the United States, at least, you think there's any, I know we're all here because we recognize the problem, but I'm looking for the solutions. You think online petitions or...
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the solutions?
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry. And the reason I brought up Pebble Mine is because it worked. So it worked. It's an enormous... Do you ever know what...
1872 mining law with online...
That's a bigger problem because it deals with Congress, and Congress can't pee in a bucket.
Pebble Mine is a pretty big problem, too.
It is a big problem, but it hit them where it counted. Numbers of people, like literally massive amount of people, and great coalitions of people that do not speak to each other in any normal way in Alaska. And they got together. And that's a really important part. So for instance, your coalition, your task force, if there's another group that, you don't like them maybe. I don't know who that is. I'm not trying to tell you. I don't even know who that would be. Hunters or maybe religious community. Don't take this, I'm just an example. You know what? You might find yourself agreeing on this. And why? Because they like the beautiful land, or because they like their mountain, or because they like their stream. You got to find those other people. That makes you more powerful. That makes this whole thing work. That's why Pebble Mine worked. Numbers of people and massive coalition. And there's only been 13 times in the history of the United States EPA where they have invoked the 404C. This will be the 14th time. It is never, this deposit Pebble Mine is worth $500 billion. Corporate world does not walk away from $500 billion. So they got shut down, and it's the first time it's ever been done on this magnitude, which should give you great hope that you are in the game now. The precedent has been set last month, 2 months ago, and everybody should know that something's going on, and you can win these battles. I think you were all okay. I'm wearing you out. I'm just wearing you out. I always like to say, as Jim Harrison, do you know who Jim Harrison is? Writer? Oh, forget it. I'm not going to tell the story. So, Max is going to come up here and tell you that we should all go to a room and hang out.